Hi there, welcome to another of Piscari's Insights series. Today I'm delighted to have Dr Ivan Misner as our guest. Dr Misner is the founder of BNI, which now has over 10,000 chapters in over 70 countries. He's written over 26 books and is often seen as the godfather of the networking world. In this episode we'll discuss Giver's Gain, examples of pivoting your business, the value of relationship building over the long term, and also watch out for his views on the sea of fear, the time confidence curve, and his VCP model. Hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the interview. Dr. Ivan Misner, thank you ever so much for coming on this call today. I'm so delighted that you agreed to come on.
Truly my pleasure, Mike, and please call me Ivan.
Thank you, Ivan. That's very kind. Thank you. Amongst many other things, you built BNI and you've been in property as well. Just talk to us a little bit at the beginning about BNI. Why did you create it, and what is it now?
So I would like to tell you that I had this vision of an international organization with chapters all around the world. But the truth is, I needed some referrals for my consulting practice. I was a management consultant. I needed some referrals. And I had gone to a lot of different networking organizations. I went to some that I'd go to, and when I left, I felt like I'd been slimed because everyone was trying to sell to me.
Yeah,
and
I know that feeling.
I hated those. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I went to these groups that it was all happy hour and hors d'oeuvres. It was just totally socializing, and no business was being done. Exactly. And I didn't like those either. What I wanted was something that was focused on business, but was not transactional. It wasn't sell.
Yep.
And I wanted something that was relational, but not totally social.
Okay.
And so I just put together one group. That was it. My plan was one group. And the glue that would hold it together is this philosophy of giver's gain, this idea that if I help you, no strings attached, you'll help me, or other people will help me, and
good things will happen.
Things will happen. And someone came who couldn't join, because in BNI we only take one person per professional category, and she couldn't join. And she said, would you help me open up my own chapter? And Mike, I actually said no to her at first. I said, no, this isn't what I do. I'm a business consultant. I don't run a network. And she said, God, come on, you're kind of helping me build my business. I'm like, that's a stretch, but okay. And one thing led to another. At the end of the year, Mike, we had 20 chapters.
Wow.
Without trying. And it was really at that point that it just hit me. We don't teach this in colleges and universities anywhere in the world. And I recognized, I understood the difference between push marketing and pull marketing. Push marketing where it's a slog. You're pushing
up. It is a slog.
Yeah, and pull marketing where you're just getting pulled through the marketplace. And I, as a business consultant, I recognized that, and I said, you know what, you better pay attention to this, because I am literally being pulled through the marketplace. And I need to pay attention. And that's when I created the plan to scale BNI. We now have over 10,000 chapters in more than 70 countries around the world.
Wow. Who
meet every week. 10,000.
Wow.
Now they met in person until COVID. Now they're all meeting, most of them meeting online, but we will eventually go back to meeting in person again, or some hybrid of some kind.
Yeah. And I see that you've launched kind of like BNI Live, live networking online. And I think, again, you've adapted rapidly as the market's changed. And community building now is, big.
We did. And our CEO, Graham Weimiller, is the person that needs to take the credit for that, because he saw this coming. He was looking around a corner, Mike. He in January of last year, he called me and said, this COVID thing is going to be a big deal. And I said, nah, it's not going to be that big. It's just another virus. It's no big deal. Yeah. He's like, no, it's going to be a big deal. He flipped a lot of our Asian groups to online in January of last year.
Wow.
Flipped Italy and some other European countries in February. And by March, we had at that time, it was 9,700 chapters. We flipped all 9,700 chapters to online by March. And I think the lesson here for business people is you've got to be willing to pivot.
Yes.
When things are challenging. And whatever that looks like for you, that's what you've got to really think about is pivoting. Let me give you a great story. So we had a BNI member who was a furniture reupholstery. They do furniture reupholstery. And one of the things I was telling members in March of last year is I hate the term social distancing. It needs physical distancing. You need to be more social than ever.
Yeah.
And so do one-to-ones, do them by Zoom, do them by Skype, do one-to-ones. So this one woman did a one-to-one with somebody, and he said to her, and this is March of last year.
Yep.
He said, you have a lot of cloth, don't you? And she said, I literally have tons. And he said, have you thought about making COVID masks? And I don't know if it was like this in your area, but in the States, we were out of masks.
Yeah.
Correct. There were just no masks. And she said, oh my goodness, no. So she went back to her shop. She made 100 masks.
Yeah.
She gave 2 to all of her BNI members and some friends.
Yep.
And all of them she gave with a card. And she said, 1 is for you. Would you please be kind enough to give the second one, along with my card, to a nurse, to a senior center, to a doctor, to a hospital, and tell them I'm manufacturing masks and I can complete them quickly.
Right.
And she was bombarded with requests. And guess what? She got to hire all her employees back.
And talk about pivoting.
Yeah,
in a heartbeat. Yeah. And that simple act of like saying, here's one free, here's one for a nursing colleague, but please give them my card as well. It's a small ask. Small
ask, and people were so happy to do it.
Yeah.
And she got so many requests, she was able to hire everyone back. And that's the kind of thing that I think happens with a network of people that you trust.
Yes.
I think your network is a beacon of hope in a sea of fear.
Very good.
And we live in a sea of fear, and it's a crazy world that we live in. But your network, you need your network today more than ever.
So talk about I read your book because I was obviously seeing you.
Which one? I had 26, but who's counting?
26, wow. Okay, so the one I read was Networking Like a Pro.
Networking Like a Pro, yeah. And that one, was that the first or second edition?
Second edition.
Yeah, that's the better edition.
Okay. So there's some great things that came out of that. And one of the things, we just talked about trust and visibility, credibility, profitability.
Yep.
And building trust. I think I'm quite old school. I was kind of trained by people like KPMG. You were taught that there was a trust formula, and trust equals credibility and professional relationship building and risk management. And in this world that we're in now, in a virtual world, which isn't going to go away, we're going to be more virtual selling and virtual relationship building. How do you build trust in a virtual world?
Well, first of all, I think we're going to see the world go back over time a lot more than people think.
Right.
I hear a lot of people say, the world will never be the same. Well, no, it's not exactly going to be the same. No, it's going to be a completely different world. Well, and I always point out to them, how much did the world change after the Spanish flu?
Yes, absolutely.
And it really didn't. Yeah. So there will be changes. For example, I think the genie's out of the bottle with online network.
For sure.
And we're going to see more of that. But I think we're also going to see people getting back to in-person, because nothing beats looking someone in three-dimensional eyes, shaking their hand, and having an in-person conversation. So I think we're going to go back to that. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if, like in groups like BNI, that it's a hybrid, that maybe 3 weeks a month is Zoom and 1 week is in person.
So I'm with you with that, because I think the travel, people have realized they don't have to travel as much. So I think that blended approach, what do I know? You're the expert, Ivan. But I would think that would work.
I do too. And as a matter of fact, I wrote an article that said that in 2018.
Right.
So 3 years ago. Now, I said that this was going to happen because of, not because of COVID. I didn't see COVID coming, but because of technology.
Yeah.
When I wrote the article, I said that within 10 years, experts are saying that 3D technology, holographic imaging, mixed reality technologies will be, within 10 years, and I wrote this at the end of 2018, so 2.5 years ago, will be as commonplace as the iPhone.
Yes.
And when that happens, we're going to have more, and I anticipated that BNI was going to be disrupted.
Right.
Or we could lead the disruption.
Exactly.
And I'd like to think that planting that seed within the organization helped us lead the disruption, because that's what we did. I mean, I really believe that someday we're going to be sitting around a room like, you remember Star Wars with the
Absolutely
Jedi Knights, right? And there's a real Jedi and a couple of holographic Jedi. And when we get there, Mike, I want to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. That blending of in-person and online will help to build the trust. I think that it's harder to really build trust via Zoom than it is in person. And so one of the things I've always recommended people who want to do business internationally is to set up appointments to meet with the people that they want to do business with internationally, and use something like LinkedIn, or if you're a BNI member, it's so easy because we have a program called BNI Connect.
Right.
And BNI members just roll out. When there's a visitor from another country, they roll out the red carpet. They love having visitors from another country. So I think, don't lose sight of that in person. But in that book, I believe in Networking Like a Pro, we talk about the time confidence curve.
Correct. It's fascinating. I loved it.
and that applies online as well as face-to-face.
It does.
No matter what business you're in, it's going to take a certain amount of time before people have confidence in your ability to provide a quality product or service. And it's not your confidence that counts. It's my confidence in your ability.
Exactly. And give me some examples, Ivan. Bring that to life, because I thought it was I like frameworks. And to me, it was a brilliant framework. But for people listening and watching, just expand on that a bit. Yeah,
so different professions have a different time confidence curve. For example, a florist has a really short time confidence curve. I mean, someone will refer a florist or try a florist quickly, because you're not, it's not real dangerous. It's not real expensive. You're willing to do that. A printer, it has a longer time confidence curve. A real estate agent, a much longer time confidence curve. A financial planner who's investing your retirement income has the longest time confidence curve. And so I tell people, first recognize what business you're in and help gauge what your time confidence curve is. I mean, you're not going to know exactly, but at least you could know within a range. The average is that you're looking at a year or more. Most people start generating referrals in their network in the second year, not the first year, because it takes time for people to know, like, and most importantly, trust you. And if they don't trust you, they're not going to refer you. Isn't it interesting that I'll hire somebody off of an advertisement if I don't know a BNI member that does something, I'll hire someone off of that. I will never refer anyone on an advertisement.
Exactly.
I will never say, I saw an ad about this guy, you should try him.
Yeah. I mean, I think interestingly, Ivan, recruitment, I've worked a lot in the recruitment industry at some scale. I was a buyer in the recruitment industry. I used to buy agency services. We'll hire people off an advert and 2 interviews into an organization. And yet, how can that possibly be an indication of trust? Whereas in McKinsey, I believe, if you get hired into McKinsey, I think it was something like 16 interviews at one point. Because they obviously worked out, you need to work out who these people are and whether they're going to be a good cultural fit and can we trust them and do they turn up on time and all those good things.
Now, here's another tidbit relating to career networking. I read recently a report on LinkedIn that found that for executive positions, not minimum wage, lower level positions, but for any kind of a supervisory position or above, 85% of the people hired came from a referral.
Yes.
And so we spend so much time looking at, if we're looking for a job, It's been a long time since I was looking for a job.
Same here.
But I remember, I'd look at ads.
Yeah.
And nobody said to me, yeah, stop looking at ads alone and start talking to people
Yeah.
about different job opportunities that are out there and start working your network. And if you're one of those people who've said or saying to yourself, no, I've not really built my network, I would give you this quote. It's an old Chinese proverb, when's the best time to plant an oak tree? And the answer is 20 years ago.
Yes.
When's the second best time? Today.
Yeah.
And so if you haven't built your network, today's the time to start. And what I'd recommend, we mentioned VCP, you mentioned VCP. VCP stands for visibility, credibility, profitability. That you must first be visible, then you move to credibility. That one takes time. Moving to credibility takes time. And
Yes.
then and only then can you get to profitability. So what I recommend is that when you're looking for a job, or when you're holed up in the great pause. I like to call it the great pause rather than quarantine. It's a different mindset.
Yeah, yeah.
When you're held up in the great pause, reverse order that for communication. Start with the people that you're at profitability with. Because you have a relationship with those people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Have conversations. Have conversations like the upholstery shop. She was talking to
Absolutely.
somebody she was at profitability with, who cared about her, who he wanted her to be successful. And then move to credibility, then move to visibility.
Absolutely. I wanted to end on one thing. Becoming the knowledgeable expert, the trusted advisor, as I was taught. Why is that so important? In a minute or so, and then we'll close.
Well, I think that networking is more about farming than it is about hunting. It's about cultivating relationships with other people. And when they view you as the knowledgeable expert, as they will when you invest the time. Social capital is a lot like financial capital. The bank has this crazy idea that you actually have to put money in before you write a check.
Yes.
Well, all too often, I think people use networking as a face-to-face cold calling opportunity. Hi, my name's Ivan. Let's do business.
Here's my card. Can we do some business together?
Or worse yet, the one I really hate is, here's 3 copies of my card. Would you give 2 to a friend?
Give them out.
And I'm
But
like,
I don't know who you are.
yes, I'm sorry. I'm Ivan. What was your name? No, I'm not going to give your card out. So, and people say it never hurts to ask. It does hurt to ask.
It does hurt to ask.
If you don't have a relationship.
To ask.
If you have a relationship, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah.
But without a relationship. So the answer to your question is, it's all about building a relationship. You know the old phrase, I'll leave you with this.
Yeah, yeah.
You know the old phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know? Mm-hmm. I don't think it's either. I don't think it's what you know or who you know. It's how well you know each other that counts. You may have great contacts in your database, but the real question is, if you needed something, could you call them?
Exactly.
Would they answer your call?
At 9 at night.
Well, yeah, that's a good friend. Would they answer your call? And if you ask them for a favor, would they be willing to do it?
Yes.
It's not what you know or who you know. It's how well you know each other that counts. And when people get that, their life changes.
And I think what better point to end. Ivan, it's been an enormous pleasure. Thank you for doing this for me. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure people listening will as well.
My pleasure, and I'm happy to come back anytime. Thanks, Mike.